This episode is all about demystifying doulas. What do doulas do? What don't they do? And why might we want to invite one in to this precious journey as we are pregnant and giving birth and welcoming our babies? Welcome back to the Be Her Village podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin McGrayus. I'm a doula, I'm a mother of three, and I'm the founder of Be Her Village. Today's episode is part one of a 6-part series all about doulas. This series is being done in partnership with the brand new Stony Brook Doula Partnership. The Stony Brook Doula Partnership is a program, an initiative put on by Stony Brook Medicine, and it is all about increasing access to doulas in order to decrease primary C-sections, meaning people who are having C-sections for their first baby. The way that we make change, the way that we get the most impact for the most amount of people is by integrating care, meaning bringing it together, bringing doulas into the room, having conversations with doctors, into the loop with midwives, getting nursing staff bought in, getting people who've never thought about using a doula using a doula. That is where we find our success. It is not in doulas staying in one lane and OBs and high risk doctors and, people that are making decisions and administering care, never ever hearing about doulas. That's not the way. Doula support is not about being adversarial, or it shouldn't be controversial. It is really about bringing people in and working together to make sure that the new parents and the birthing person and the birthing woman are as supported as they possibly can be as they navigate their birth, their pregnancy, and, their interactions with the medical system. So, that being said, we cannot cover it all in one episode. I think from this introduction, perhaps you are gathering that. So this first episode is going to answer a really simple question, which is, what even is a doula? There is so much information about doulas and how they are just an evidence-based intervention, right? That doulas help reduce C-sections, shorten labor time, shorten pushing time, increase the health of the baby, increase the, positive reflection on their birth for parents. They reduce instrumental birth, meaning forceps or vacuum. They are just across the board. They're increasing breastfeeding rates. They're increasing postpartum medical visits, attendance. They have an incredible impact on actual health metrics. And yet they still seem a little mysterious. So this episode is all about demystifying doulas. What do doulas do? What don't they do? And why might we want to invite one in to this precious journey as we are pregnant and giving birth and welcoming our babies? So I cannot wait to get into this episode. It was such a great conversation. So without further ado, my conversation with Ebonie Tudor. What is a doula?
A doula. So a doula is more so like an advocate, a birth advocate, a support person, a cheerleader, a bestie when it comes down to being support for a birthing person and or their family per se. Doulas are not medically trained, but are trained, right? So while a doula cannot deliver your baby, cannot take your vitals, do those things, a doula can show up with you at one of your prenatal visits and, just be that that additional person in the room that can hear what's going on. You can ask your doula certain questions. They have resources and references and things like that. So I find like it's more so like I love to say it's like your bestie for prenatal and labor and delivery and postpartum.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so I'm going to ask the most popular question, or maybe I should say the most common point of confusion
Hmm.
that I think happens when you hear that, because I think a lot of people think, oh, yes, I want that. I want a certain type of birth. I want someone cheerleading me. I'm going to get myself a midwife. Isn't that the same thing as a doula? Can you help us understand what the differences are between a doula and a midwife?
Yes. You know, when I first became a doula, I knew what a midwife was, but did not really fully understand the full gamut, of midwifery care. And if I had the easiest way to say it, or the one that makes the most sense, is if you were to think of like your OBGYN, a midwife can do all the things that your OBGYN can do. Right. And I think some people don't realize that. Midwives can deliver your baby, they can, help you with prenatal care, helping you with pregnancy, like fertility, all these different things. They can see you at perimenopausal stage, they can see you at menopause stage. So midwives play that role in women's health, whereas doulas, right, we show up more so when it's time for like the prenatal care and just being that support person. There's no medicine involved, there's no scripts involved, there's no diagnoses happening there. It's more so having a conversation with someone that has the knowledge of what it is to be pregnant or to be in the prenatal spaces, and to assist you with any questions, support that you may have, right? Midwives, medically trained. They're, like I said, midwives are like doctors, right? Some of them are, doctors, some of them are registered nurses, and they have all these other accreditations behind them. They take state tests and do all of these different things. Whereas doulas, certain doulas go through like a 6 week training, or go through, like a full weekend training. And then what makes them more advanced, or have more skill sets, is the more births that they attend. But usually the role of the doula starts around like that prenatal, maybe around the second trimester. Some people are earlier. And then we hang out until like postpartum, about 6 weeks. And then that's really it, right? And you get to pick your doula too. Like you get to have like those interviews and see who match it, like if you match with your doula. So that's why I'm like, it's more so like your best friend, and who won't have all the answers for you.
I love that. So people who are choosing midwifery care and are choosing their midwife often also have a doula.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That is true too. And you don't have to, right? Like some people who opt not to have a midwife, and they want to have like an OBGYN, they can have a doula as well too. So you don't, people think doulas and midwives and just automatically jump to home births.
Mhm.
Right. And that's not the case. There are midwives in hospital settings. There are doulas in hospital settings as well. The majority of my births as a doula have been in the hospital setting. Very few in birth centers and home births, right? And I feel like a lot of people want more doulas when they're in the hospital setting, because it's kind of like that go between, like, okay, I can't really get as much of a holistic experience that I want because I'm going to be in the hospital, but having that doula can bring some of that energy into the birthing space.
I love that. That's wonderful. Yes, I think that what you just touched on, that idea that a doula is just for a certain kind of birth. It's just for this person who wants, I always sort of air quotes say like a crunchy granola, the like hippy
Woo
dippy
woo.
epidural, woo woo. And like I've had that, so I get it, but like
Uh-huh.
that just that home birth, natural sage burning birth, that's where you hire a doula. And that might have been where doulas were mainly working like maybe 30 years ago. But
Yeah.
even in the like 10, 12 years I've been a doula, it has just drastically changed. I mean, we're talking about the Stony Brook Doula Partnership. We're like,
Exactly.
this is what we're talking about. It's not this thing for the fringe or the niche
Correct.
or the quote unquote natural birthers. It is for anyone who wants to have an empowered experience, who wants to feel like they can advocate for themselves, feel
Right.
informed. Like it's just doulas are for everyone now. And I love what you just said about having most of your births that you attended be in hospitals, because similar for me, I'm not attending births anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was like, I would get hired. I was not like the sage burning doula. I was like the much more mainstream doula, and I think I attracted clients like that. But it was also like, hi, I'm having a scheduled C-section and I would like a doula. So I'm hiring
Yes.
you. Hi, I'm having my third baby and I must have an epidural. So I'm hiring you. And people wanting the opposite, but it was just people mostly that wanted to feel like a human being in
So
their care. you
That
know?
is so true. I love that you said that too, where you talked about scheduled C-sections and yes, you can have a doula, right? Or this not being your first baby. And it's like, yes, you still need a doula. I'm having an epidural. Some people think like, oh, I will probably need to have a non-medicated birth in order to really need a doula. No, you just need to be having a birth. However you choose to have your baby. And having a doula will be helpful because yes, to your point, like a doula is, yes, we have in the hospital setting, there's nurses and there's staff there, but they are actually juggling you with other patients. Your doula is with you. That's it. Like they are not focused on anyone else but you.
Oh my goodness. All right. So that is going right into our next question because I feel, all right, a little bitty story time because I feel like my first baby, this was such a misconception I held was that my midwife would be with me the whole time. I
Mm,
thought my midwife would be next to me the whole time. I knew my husband would be next to me the whole time. I thought a doula would be excess. I thought it would be too many eyes staring at me.
hmm.
Imagine my surprise when I get to the hospital and my midwife is off midwifing,
Right,
wonderful people, but off midwifing, that's just the model of care.
right,
And my husband and my mother are next to me like deer in headlights. They did not know what to do with me because I was in labor and I'm like fairly difficult, I think, when I'm not in labor. And then just really
oh no,
extra difficult maybe with them. So I was then like, oh boy, a doula would be just amazing, if not even for me, just to help them know how to
them.
support me.
Hmm.
So I love that you just sort of like underline this idea that your doula is actually, I think, often what we imagine when we have no idea, right? Many of the
Right,
people we're talking to have never done this before.
right,
You think the labor nurse, you think your midwife, you think often even your doctor is going to be there holding your hand and walking you through contractions. And
right.
actually, you could spend a lot of time alone in your L&D room if you don't have a doula.
You do, you definitely do. And then thinking of like when your doula shows up, and that's a conversation to have, as well too. Like sometimes your doula will be there if you're having like a scheduled induction or something like that. Your doula will probably be there from the beginning, or sometimes they show up, once you're in active labor. That's a conversation that you will have. But the thing is, when you are by yourself, that your doula should have helped you or equipped you enough to like get you so you know how to get into your body and kind of like handle whatever it is going on, or your support person, right? So the doula is not also just for you. If you have support, if you have a spouse, if you have older kids or whatever, your family situation is, doulas come in and give them enough information to equip them to help with labor support, to help with advocacy, things like that. So you don't feel like you're by yourself when the doula is not physically present, right? You can still definitely call, you have that phone support, with your doula in between or however you have it set up. But that's a big thing too, because I don't want any partner to ever feel like, oh, a doula is going to come in and I'm not going to have anything to do, right? They're just going to take over. And I'm like, nope, this is not my baby, right? Nope, I'm going to support you. And sometimes the support person, the partner needs help. Like, remember what it is that your partner loves whenever they are not feeling well, right? You know them better than I know them. So don't, trust yourself with that. And then sometimes they need a break, right? It's like, okay, you've been like doing these hip squeezes for like 8 hours now. I'm gonna need you to like take a nap and get something to drink and get some air. So
I
that too.
love that. Yes, and there are so many partners, and I think a lot of the time when people don't choose to work with a doula, if they were like on the fence about it and they opted not to, it's because of that fear that the partner's going to get pushed out.
Yep.
And it in practice, it is the opposite. It is that the partner needs tools. They
Yeah.
need tools to support their birthing person. And I have to say, like, one of the signposts of active labor is the being drawn within yourself, right? It's like you
Mhm.
stop being so present in the room and you are really all of your energy is going internal. You stop
Right.
laughing at jokes. I mean, it's like funny, but also actually that's a signpost of
Right.
labor. You stop being able to give very specific and detailed information. You stop being able to
Mhm.
micromanage, which is
Mhm.
lovely and different for some couples. And so
Yeah.
you have this situation where the partner who maybe, not all, but a
Right.
lot, I'm generalizing here, but it's for a reason. A lot of partners are not the ones who are taking on the details of the pregnancy and the birth and the labor and all the baby stuff, right? The birthing person, the birthing woman is the one that takes that on. She's got her checklist, she's got her, her registry, she's got her birth plan, she's got all her things.
Right.
And then labor hits and she goes within and stops talking. Like this partner is like, what do I do? Is she
Ex-
okay?
Exactly.
Do I have to call 911? Like, I mean, it's really like there's a shift. And to have a doula there
hmm
that can look at, I feel like when I went into these houses of laboring people, it's like I mostly just stood there and normalized what I was seeing, which calmed the partner's anxiety so low that they could show
Yes.
up and love on their partner and not be fearful. And I
Yes.
would only find that out after the baby was out when the partner would go, "Oh my God, I don't know what I would have done if you weren't here."
Right.
And the birthing woman would go, he was freaking out before you got here. I would go, wow, I had
Yes.
no idea about any of that, you know?
Yes. Yes. It's so true. I do often hear too, the partners are the ones saying, so when is a doula coming?
Mm. Hmm.
Because how do we know that everything is okay?
How do we
Right?
know? Yeah. And I just like jumping off of that, how do we know everything is okay? One of the things that there's like a decision to be made around that doulas help with is the question
Mm.
of should I call my midwife? Should I call my doctor?
Yes.
Right? Can you
Yes.
speak to your experience as a doula, how that question is handled? How often, like, do you find that people are reaching out to you and saying, this is happening, but I'm not sure if I should escalate it to my medical team? Like, do you find yourself in the middle of that decision?
Yes, I do. And my automatic answer is always call your midwife or call your doctor. And it's not to, and I tell them it's not because I don't want to, be here to support you. Like, okay, I hear what you're saying. And that's a lot of times that's what it is. They want that reassurance, like, yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. How you're feeling is valid. I feel like you should call your provider and let them know. Remember, like, and this is not to, throw any salt on anything, but your providers, they work for you. And it's not like in that way, like you're like, standing over them, you work for me, but they do work for you, right? So they should never make you feel as though like you're bothering them. And if you have a provider that makes you feel like, why are you calling me with this nonsense? That is not the provider for you, right? And if your provider can't get to you, they should have someone on their team, like an NP or a nurse practitioner or, you know, a student midwife or an assistant or someone that should be able to answer the questions for you. And if you ever feel like you're in limbo and you're not getting the answers from a medical professional or someone that works on that team, then that's probably not the practice for you. And then it's like, okay, well, let's see what practice works best for you and helping them based off of other, resources and experiences. Maybe there's a different practice that would work best for them. But my automatic answer is, okay, I hear exactly. I take the time and listen. I actively listen to what it is that they're telling me. All right, so I think now is the time that we call the midwife or your OBGYN or whomever and just, get their take on it. Maybe they want you to come in and, run some tests or something like that. That's the only way you're going to get peace of mind.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think sometimes part of the doula's role in that is giving that permission to
Yeah.
access your team, which
Yes.
which is sort of wild, but it's true. There are so many patients and birthing people out there that are nervous to bother someone, that are like,
Mm.
oh, sort of a little like meek, a little, not
Yeah.
meek in their lives, but like meek in this really specific medical journey
Yeah.
of like they don't want to bother someone. And
hmm
it's part of the empowerment process to say, hey, I'm so glad you reached out to me. This is a great question for your team. If my thing is, if you're even thinking about reaching out to your midwife or your doctor, you
Do it.
should.
Do it.
And now that I have you on the phone, like here's some of the things they might say, and here's some of the choices you might get, and here are some of your options, and here's an article,
Right.
while I have you. But it does help facilitate that conversation. And I would argue that when you have a doula, a well-trained, experienced doula that approaches the medical team and the medical system with open arms, right? That
Mhm.
understands we're all part of the same team trying to get this mother baby, this birthing person whole in this
Yeah.
family. I would argue that you have actually more contact with your medical team when you have a doula involved because they're trying to push that communication. They're trying to foster it and empower it instead
Exactly.
of cutting it down and keeping people quiet. Like literally
I
part of our
agree.
job description is helping people find their voice.
Exactly. And to that point too, it's like we remind them to pause because sometimes in medical fields in general, like I will say some people they just automatically move on autopilot and they're just talking and maybe sometimes they'll talk fast or if you are, the birthing person and English isn't your first language and it's just like you automatically just like relinquish however it is that you're feeling and you just say yes, okay, and you don't, like you say, you don't have your voice and you don't ask questions if you don't fully understand because you might be embarrassed and be like, oh, I really should know this. And having a doula will also do that check-in and I know me personally, I'll ask, did you understand what was just said? Like, do you have any questions? Right. So that kind of like pauses everything that's going on. Right. And if they say yes, okay, how about you tell me in your own words what you heard, right? So then that way we can fill in the blanks, and then if there's something that was misunderstood, there's that clarification piece, right, too. So a lot of it pauses also for that informed consent piece, right, which kind of gets thrown out the window a lot of times,
Oh
right?
my goodness. I'm like, I want to like go into a round of applause. Yes. Yes to all of this. I love the language you're using. I love just the pause, repeat it back to me. Like the power of a pause during your labor and birthing time is incredible because it can be helpful for like checking for understanding. It can be
Right,
helpful for remembering why we're here and what our original plan was, seeing if it's time to make a change. And if
right.
it is time for a change, it's great to just like check in with yourself emotionally. Like a
Yes,
pause can slow down the trauma, right? A
yes,
pause can like help us feel like we're in charge and that we're an active participant rather than things are happening to us and it's completely out of our control. The pause is so, so, so powerful. And I love the way that you help check for understanding because I don't know that it's intentional, but there
right.
absolutely is a just complete medical language that doulas understand. Like you can listen to a doctor and a nurse, or two doctors, or a doctor and a midwife, or whatever. You can listen to any of these highly, accredited medical people have a conversation. And they can have an entire conversation about what's going on with the mother, what's going on with the baby, what their thoughts are, and what the plan is, using only acronyms and numbers
Yes,
in a
yes.
way that leaves out the patients and the patients' families and advocates. And it is probably not intentional, but it's really nice to have a
Mhm.
translator. A
Correct.
translator, even if there's not a language barrier, there's a
Right.
language barrier for like medical lingo versus people who are not on in a medical field.
Correct.
That is so, so powerful. And one of the things that doulas do, and I think we've touched on a lot of them, but one of the big things we do is really do that translation
Hmm.
for what's actually happening and what is the thought process of the people who are caring for you at
Correct.
this time.
Correct. That is so important too. I love that you said that it is that thought process and um, just the translation, right? Because for example, and this is just speaking of like if they were to do a cervical check, right? And then after the cervical check, they'll say like, okay, 85% -3 two. And everybody in the room is like looking around like, what is that? And then that's when your doula can step in if they are aware. So maybe you have like a doula that may not be aware, and the doula can say, oh, I heard you say some numbers. Do you mind just like letting them know what this means? Right. And then you can go into like, oh, okay. And that happens. So, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even realize to your point. It's just like their language, right? And then go on to fully explain. And that also creates that connection, in the room too. It's like, yes, I'm an actual person, right? And I'm having a baby, and thank you for taking the time to explain to me.
Yes, I love that. And to your point, it also like brings the patient into the decision making because I think a lot of times what happens not out of malice, but just out of like time constraints and training, and there's so many patients and only so much time in a day. I think often you can like have a cervical exam and then they just say the numbers so that the nurse charts them and they say you're doing great and they leave. But
Right.
you're not if you're not understanding that there's been no change
Right.
and that it's been 6 hours, that you're not understanding. They're walking out that room thinking, all right, next time I come in, I'm recommending Pitocin. Next time
Correct.
I come in, I'm coming in with a, an amniotic hook, like to break
Right.
the waters. It's when we had that communication open earlier, for better
Correct.
or worse, you might not necessarily be changing the course of the medical,
Right.
of the medical journey. The same exact things might happen. We won't know though, right? And that's not
Right.
necessarily as doulas our job to change the medical journey, but you might feel better if you had a heads up about where the doctor or midwife's mindset was 3 cervical exams ago
Yes.
or 6 or 12 hours ago, so that
Yes.
you're not caught off guard by that, like, well, we have to recommend this and we're doing it now and there's no more time because we've been thinking this for 12 hours,
So
so
true.
yeah.
So true.
Okay, so I feel like this we've gone so many different places.
Sorry.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And it makes me feel so excited because I think doulas are still sort of mysterious to people. They
Hmm.
still feel sort of out of reach. And I'm so excited about this program that's making them more in reach.
Yes.
I'm excited about more people using them. Can you just like give me a breakdown of like someone's like, oh my goodness, I need to work with Ebonie and I'm going to call her right now because I'm exactly the right amount of weeks pregnant that she's about to tell me and we're going to work together. Can you like break down generally, it doesn't have to be your specific practice, but what does it look
Mhm.
like from start to finish, meetings wise? Where and when are they joining you in labor? How long are
Yeah.
they staying afterwards? Like just the logistics of having a doula.
So I like to work with a birthing person the middle of their second trimester. However, some folks have wanted to work with a doula as early as like the end of their first trimester. And that could be because of for whatever reason. It's not my place to say, to judge or anything like that. I will support you. A lot of the work starts in the second trimester, though, when it comes down to, I want to make sure that you have childbirth education, regardless of wherever you get it from. Understanding what to anticipate, that's helpful. I like to have I'll do like a minimum of like three in-person prenatal visits, one where we go over your birth preferences, introduce me to, whomever is going to be there with us that same day. Whether if you have a little already, if you have a partner, if it's just you by yourself. And then second visit, sometimes I will say, let's go to a prenatal visit with your provider. So that way, when your provider sees me, the day of, I'm not a stranger, or they are fully aware that you have a doula, talking about labor pain management techniques, going through them. I love, and I'm not sure, like I love spinning babies. I love what's their name? Mama Stay Fit. Like all these different folks that are on the internet that help with just movement, right? And getting into right positions, like becoming aware of that and practicing that while you're pregnant, right? Whatever is safe, just so you can become familiar with what feels good, what doesn't feel good in your body. So it's a lot of that connection. Reminding folks to do certain things like go to the dentist, right? We kind of forget that, and why that's so important. And then preparing for postpartum, and preparing for postpartum in the prenatal stage,
Mm.
because a lot of times we are preparing or we're thinking about so much of labor and delivery. How long am I going to be in labor? When do I go to the hospital? And not really focus on how am I going to feed my baby once my baby is here, right? Or what's the setup going to look like? Who's going to take a shift? Because babies need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So when do I sleep? Right. So just starting to like set up that level of expectation and do some like some drills, just to get familiar with that and see who can support, lining up folks that maybe you have someone that cooks really well, someone that organizes, different like folks in your circle or in your unit that can help you. So those are some of the things that we would do prenatally, right? And then I would be there for labor and delivery, in person until baby arrives, 2 hours after, to make sure that everyone is good. And then postpartum visits, it depends, upon how you want it to be. It can be two in person, three, however you need it. But I always make myself available for that family or that person up until 6 weeks postpartum, right? We know postpartum lasts forever. We know the first year of postpartum, you're still ever changing. But the goal is hopefully, as a postpartum doula, that at that 6 week point, you feel more prepared and secure in your role to just like, okay, I got this. I don't need you anymore,
Mm.
type of thing.
That's
Hopefully that
wonderful.
answered your question.
Oh, that absolutely answered the question. That's wonderful. Great. Well, I think that's it for our conversation. Ebony, is there anything else you would like to add for someone who's listening today and maybe was thinking about a doula or even just heard about doulas for the first time and is thinking, wow, I think I want a doula when I go give birth? What would you want to say to them?
You should definitely, everyone deserves a doula. I know that it's said so many times, and some folks are like, oh, but I don't think I need that person. And then the day of, and it's just like, oh, I wish I had that person. Um, please look into a doula. There is a doula for everybody. Like, do the research, everyone, it'll align with that, with you and your birthing experience. But the one thing that I want, if you, whenever you walk away, just know that you are the expert of your body. That's the biggest thing for me. You are the expert of your body. Whatever you're feeling, that gut reaction that you have, like, don't ignore that.
That is spectacular advice to end on. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. I hope after listening to this, you feel like you have a much more clear idea of how doulas actually interact with new parents. I hope that if you are a new parent listening to this, that you are opened up to the idea that even if you're not somebody that's desiring, the more natural birth or even an epidural free birth or home birth or any of those things, that you might still consider using a doula, that you might feel, feeling empowered and having information and having an additional resource to navigate the medical system is something that could be beneficial to me. I hope that we have piqued a little bit of curiosity for you. I would encourage, if that has happened for you, to please go to our show notes. You will find the link to the Stony Brook Doula Partnership webpage. You can fill out a form there and they will match you with their doulas. They have an incredible team of doulas that they have built and are still building. So if you're a doula in the area, you should also go to that page. And you can be part of this incredible initiative. Stay tuned, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next episode in our series that will be continuing this conversation about what doulas are and how we use them and how they're beneficial. So thank you so much for listening. Text me your questions. I want to hear what you thought about this episode. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. See you then.